Okay, good afternoon everyone, and welcome back to the telecoms track. We have our final presentation of the day before we have a customer advisory meeting, and it's coen.porteners from Real World Software Products who will be talking about the road to operational happiness. That sounds like it's worthwhile, isn't it? Coen is his current role at Real World is a solution architect. He's earned his master's degree in artificial intelligence in 2008. At that time he worked at a cloud startup. That was during and after his studies, and then joined Real World in late 2008. He's led the implementation of the Diagnostics product since 2012 and consulted with a number of small world customers about generating and using operational data from their GIS. So I'll pass over to Coen to take you through it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you've got it.
Should be, yeah, at the microphone. So welcome everyone. Happy to see there's quite a turn up. The title was pretty mysterious. Happy that it's appealing to all of you. I'm going to talk about gathering operational data, about why you should do it. So, sorry about that. First of all, I'll start with an introduction of what operational data is. So what I mean when I talk about it. That gives us a point of reference. Then I'll talk about gathering operational data for small world specifically. And finally, the way I think we should go about it to share it between customers as we sit here. And also feel free to interrupt. So if you have questions, don't wait until the end. It can be an open discussion. So let's go for it. So first of all, what is operational data? It's all data about how your small world system is performing, how it's being used. So it's not about the data that's actually in the database, but it's how the small world application works for your users, for your server sessions, what's going on in the system. So many kinds of metrics, for example, number of users, size of the database files, number of running sessions, startup times, all of those metrics, that's operational data. Why should you want to have that? Before you can have certain KPIs, for example, that you have to meet. You have users that you need to support. There's a lot of things you can do. You need operational data to make it easier for you. And there's many ways to get your hands on it. So first step to use operational data, first you need to get your hands on it. If I talk about operational data, I'd like to visualize it as a cube. And each metric, so for example, the startup time of Small World today, that will be one data point in the cube. And there's 3 dimensions to it. And the more effort you put into filling the cube, the more data you have, and the better analysis you can make with this data. So first of all, we have the time dimension. So if you use the same example, measuring the startup time, you can do it today. But you could also do it today, tomorrow, every day of the year, every time the small world application is started. That will give you a lot of data points that you can use for reference. And if you do that, it allows you to see, for example, regression. So if you see it's 5 seconds today, 10 seconds tomorrow, that will already tell you, hey, I made a change and it had a negative impact. So the time dimension is very important. Also, in addition to regression, it helps you to predict. So if you see that there's certain trends in the data, you can make a prediction. So if it grows every day a little bit, for example, the database size or the number of users, you can make predictions to see at what point you're going to reach a certain threshold. So that's one dimension of the cube. Then we have perspective. Again, same example, if you're measuring startup time, you can do it for one user, You might even have some automated scripts, like a robot who starts the application every day from a certain location. If you actually want to say anything about performance and why it's good or bad, you actually need different perspectives to measure it. So not just one user or one robot, you actually want all of the users from all of the sites to report their experience. Can be users, can also be servers, for example. And finally, the level of detail. So for every kind of data that you gather, you want to add as much context as you can. So yes, startup time might be 5 seconds, but what server has it been run on? What time was it? Maybe alternatives or any kinds of things that might be relevant. You want to add that to your data points as well. So if you do all of that, you'll be able to get all of the data. So all of the times from all of the perspectives and as much detail as you can. And that's data. Many people probably tell you need a lot of data. They're true. But data by itself doesn't let you do anything. You need to turn this data into actions. Because if you see something that's wrong, you want to know what should I do to make it better. So you want to turn the data into insights and the insights into actions. So that's what we call an actionable insight. And that's not always really easy to do. So you might see bad performance today. Okay, you have to act on it if it's like consistent now. If it happens only once, it might have disappeared already. You don't need to take any action. So the more observations you have, the better you'll be able to extrapolate and classify it as an actual issue or not, and what you're going to do about it. So you have to be able to judge the probability that you're actually right in that you're drawing the right conclusions. And the probability that you're right is always somewhere between yes and no. Often somewhere in the middle, so you want to know how certain am I. And in order to do that, the more data you have, the better you'll be able to make this call for yourself. So if you have only one data point, you'll find yourself guessing. So one user might report to you saying, performance is bad today. And you're like, all right, let's just research everything. Let's invest a couple of hours, see if I can find anything. The more data you have, the better your chance of actually putting that in perspective. All right. Then for small world operational data. I put some questions on the slides here. Some questions that you might recognize. Since when is the server unresponsive? Who posted what kind of data? When the user did this, what path or what design was involved? Any of this looks familiar to you? Yeah. All right. Somebody built a feature 10 years ago, which might or might not be in use anymore. Usually people are a bit scared. They build it. Sorry, what's that?
Yes, we did.
You did, yeah.
Every day.
Every day. Yeah, that's we get that a lot. So it's okay to build on top of it. It's okay to build extensions if users say, it would be great if the software can do this. We will build it for you, because we're there to support the users, but nobody has a clue if it's still relevant. You might develop something, test it in test environment, it's okay. You go live, all of a sudden it doesn't perform anymore. Or you simply want to plan capacity. So how can you go about it? For example, you can write debug statements in your small world code. Or you can simply ask someone. So if you have deployed in the weekend, how would you go about it? You can simply ask the users, well, we made a new release. Are you happy? Does it still perform well? Who knows? Or you might just sit back and wait for the complaints to come in. Did I miss any of the procedures? And of course, log files. Bad things about the log files, they are very local. If you need them, you have to actually go look for them. So, what I propose instead of all of this is version 2.0 of gathering this kind of information. So, don't try to add magic print lines, which you have to seek for. Don't rely on the subjective measurements of the users, saying it's good today or it's poor. It has to be objective, proactive, continuous, standardized, and centralized. Is there anybody doing this kind of gathering operational data? In like a central location, maybe doing analysis? Not yet. No. All right. Well, you should, because there's a lot of things you can do. It saves you a lot of time if you have to search for issues to be able to correlate. So, if someone comes to you and says, "This is my problem," you want to know when did it first start, for example. You would like to know, is everybody affected or not? Because you might just be chasing your tail if you go about and just research everything. Also, you can use it really nicely if you're doing migration. So the example of the 10 years old functionality, at some point everybody needs to migrate to Small World 5. Can save you some time if you actually know this feature that we built. It was useful at the time, yes, very good. But nobody uses it anymore. If you ask someone, he will always tell you, yes, it's important, or they don't dare to say, I don't use it, so you can get rid of it. Just having all of this data makes you feel comfortable and will actually give you a reliable basis for your decisions. And also, the more data you gather, you never know upfront when you're going to need it. So make sure to gather it upfront. When you need it, you'll be happy that you have it. And then sharing the insights. So we are all in the same market. We all have the same kind of the same small world systems that we need to support. And we all have the questions that we need to answer to support the system, to support the users. But still, all of the efforts are pretty much scattered. So if you need something, you go in on an ad hoc basis, try to get the information, try to analyze it, make your own conclusions. Wouldn't it be nice if we could standardize that and share it amongst ourselves? So determining what to get, what information to do together is pretty hard. You might find yourself in the situation if you have an issue on Monday morning, you did a release in the weekend, you might search for hours, maybe even days, to find what was wrong. When you finally find the answer, turns out the solution was pretty easy. So I would advocate, let us centralize and let us unify the way that we do the logging in Small World, so that we can actually benefit all from this. And it's not that hard to do. So if you put the logging in place, if it's the same for everyone, simply generate the data and we can look at it the same way. And be sure to do it from all sides. So all times, all perspective, and as much detail as you can. And real world can help. It's not there by accident. It's just that earlier this week we had the release of our product, which is Diagnostics, which is now version 2.0. And all of these ideas we put into the product. So we gather all this information over time, we gather it from all the perspectives, and we try to put in as much detail as we can. but there's just so much that we can do. So what we did is we added an API. People can extend it, so any kind of logging that you currently use, that you put in log files, put the write lines, anything like that, you actually just can send it into the product. You have everything centralized in one location, and you have to combine. You can easily just see everything that's going on, all of the user actions, all of the database interactions, everything, it's in there. And we allow you to share it. So we have a portal, you can go on there. You can see, for example, this is how you can keep track of your quality rules. Are the quality rules even run by all of the users? How do they perform? If you impose them in the workflow, how long have the people to wait on all of those? Is the job server online? How much time does it take to process one of the jobs? Are there any conflicts during the merge? Who introduced the conflicts? Or if there's a data issue, who worked on the same data? What might be the cause of this problem? So all of this, we have unified logging for it. And I encourage you, if you want to extend it, share it back into the community so that we can all do it in the same way. So, simple, it's a lot of statistics, complicated equations. This one is easy. Happy users and happy management means happy you. That's my preaching for today. So I would say gather all of the data. I'm pretty interested actually to hear what is your current initiatives. Do you feel you have all of the data that you need? What would you like to add? How do you go about it? Do you gather operational data about your small world GIS?
Yeah.
Can I use the mic maybe? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah? Yeah, give it to you.
Sure, we gather the information of the small GIS, which we're using with Swisscom. Using also several tools. One of them is our own, so written by me, is monitoring console, but this is not only the monitoring tool, even the steering tool, so we can remotely start and stop any images and restart them.
Yeah.
We also have an alerting part inside of this. Let's say if one service doesn't running, when it should, we will be informed by SMS on the mobile phone, or if the alert is not a red alert, we will be informed by HIP chat.
Yeah.
We're also doing the hardware monitoring using Prometheus Grafana and Elasticstack tools when we searching have some problems which could be getting info via log files.
Yeah.
But my approach currently is to get all the three tools together. Three tools is more than one.
Yeah. So it's pretty scattered.
Yeah, and also the part what you presented with your demonstration, so there's the detailed insights of the small session. It's also currently what we're missing.
Yeah.
We're still working in that direction.
Yeah. Would you feel like there's some kind of insights that you could share with your peers that you would say like maybe unified logging, unified approach would be beneficial?
Not sure, to be honest. Not sure.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Just interested to hear how you go about it. Questions about it? Yeah.
You already have some module, the PNI module, which collects all that info, or you can make it if somebody is interested?
It's already there. So we have 25 different types of events that we collect. So it's about the user activity, the map activity, database updates, queries. And then there's a 26 type, which is extendable through the API. So it's generic for small world core, Office products, as well as the customization that you add on top of it. So out of the box, all of the P&I functionality is tracked, but you can inject any additions that you feel are useful.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And any other questions?
Well, how many deployments have you got of this software?
It's currently between 20 and 25.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is the telco track, but it's also in all other disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So we have deployments in Europe, in the US, and also in Australia.
Okay.
And what we do now is with the new release, we actually, it used to be run on-premise, so all of the statistics that you gather, all of the data remains inside the gate and it's up there for you to analyze. What we do now is we actually make an effort to centralize it, so there's a cloud solution. Buzzwords, but the point is you only have to say generate the data on premise, and you just say upload it to the servers of Real or anyone else, and they will do the analysis for you, because the step that I put there, getting from the data to the actions, that's the complicated bit, and it's not always the case that the customer has the time to look at the operational data and then make the call to see, well, should I add an index? Should I extend the file? Should I, is the complaint of the user justified or not? Is the problem in the source or is it in the behavior of the user? That's often hard to judge. So what we do is by centralizing it, we can actually let you skip the step of the interpretation and just tell you, change this to make it better. So it seems like a bug hunting initiative, but it's actually also very useful just for the user behavior. So many people use this for migration scenarios, and they want to know, before I do all of the efforts to get myself to Small World 5, why not just make an inventory of all the functionality that we have, see if it's all still relevant, or whether we actually can skip some of it, push it out, and like save half of the upgrading effort. And that's something that people don't really easily do. They just say, well, just to be on the safe side, let's keep all of it. But it saves you a lot of effort, a lot of testing as well, to make the call up front.
Does it have an impact on performance, actually, this data collecting for this diagnostics? No. It's
that was the first design principle to not make things worse. So if you give the user the small world session with or without the monitoring active, he doesn't notice the difference. No, it's very important. But no, it shouldn't make others worse. It's just same performance.
Very good. Thank you very much, Joe.